This is Tracy with Harrison Smith, the writer and director of the upcoming film Death House, and some other films, which, if you haven't checked them out, you need to. You need to check out The Fields, 6 Degrees of Hell, Camp Dread, Zombie Killers, and of course, Death House, because it's going to be awesome. And here on Films of Fears, what we do is we interview those wonderful people who bring you all of those things frightfully wonderful about movies. So, yay. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Harrison. Hi, Harrison.
Thank you. Hi, how are you? And thanks for having me on.
You are very welcome. I'm excited because you agreed to do my little show. And so, I'm excited. So if I sound excited, it's because I am, right? All right, okay.
Sure.
So, Harrison, you have been doing what you do for a while now. What made you get
Correct.
into movies in the first place?
Well, that's a twofold answer. The first thing is the movie Jaws. I knew when I was 8 years old, I saw it in 1975 in the theaters. My mother took me to go see it, and I knew walking out of that theater that that's what I want to do. I want to do what this movie did. I want to make people scream and yell and applaud and laugh, and at the end they stood up and they applauded the film. And as a boy, that made a very huge impression on me. And then the second answer would be is growing up with my grandmother. My grandmother loved horror films, and by the time I was 8, 9 years old, I knew who Vincent Price was. I knew Peter Lorre, Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi. I mean, I knew them all, and I had a lot of fun with her watching, the Creature double features on Saturday afternoons, and Dr. Shock out of Philadelphia, and also the CBS late night movie where I cut my teeth on not only endless Planet of the Apes movies, but Let's Scare Jessica to Death, and so many of them, and all the Hammer films, Dracula, Christopher Lee. So it was a blast, and films were just fun, and they were great escapist entertainment. And so I started, the fascination with them. And then when I was 10, my uncle got me a silent Super 8 Kodak camera, film camera. And I started making movies in my neighborhood and got my friends in them, and I edited with scissors and Scotch tape and a Mickey Mouse light board to scrawl in, like with a needle, the laser effects and all of that stuff. And it just went from there. By the time I was 16, I had my own local cable TV show, a comedy show, and I put my friends all in it, and that ran for a couple years, and it just kind of rolled right from there.
That is all types of awesome. It's like
It was just
right.
being a
That's like
kid.
the best origin story. Like,
Well, I mean, it's just one of those things that it was a lot of different things that came together, So and most of all, it's about loving what you do. And I've always loved movies, and I love all kinds. I'm not just a horror guy. Like, I just wrapped a comedy kinds of films, and most of all, I just love the idea that the films can just have that effect on us. People always say music. Yes, I get it. Yes, music has a big impact on us, but film probably next to, I think even above technology or even modern medical, miracles, is the closest thing that people come to magic, and that's why I think there's a fascination for film, because we want to be immortalized. If you're in a movie, then you're there forever, and lots of people will see you. And it's almost in a weird, very macabre way, or maybe not even a macabre way, but movies are kind of like a living tombstone, is what they are. I mean, I was cleaning the house for a holiday dinner tomorrow. My family is coming, my dad and all that. And, I'm watching Psycho 2 while I'm cleaning the house. Well, Perkins is long gone, and that's a shame. And I knew Anthony Perkins, and, here it is. I'm watching him in my house. I'm hearing his voice, and, that's his legacy. And that's cool. And I think that's a reason why people gravitate toward entertainment, especially film and television, because it's a visual medium. We can see it. And
it's funny. It's funny that you said that. So we've lost so many people, and I'm circling back around to you knew Anthony, you knew Anthony Perkins, so I'm circling back around to that, but we've lost so many people over these past few years, and so I watch a lot of movies. I kind of veg out on movies on the weekend. I don't really watch them during the week. I do it on the weekends. And I was watching some movies that have people in them that are no longer with us. And it's one of those things where it's like you're grateful that you can still have these people around.
Oh, I agree.
So you have you have this testament to the kind of actor or actress that they were, and then you have them immortalized on film so you can always go back. One of the actors that I really miss is Robin Williams, and so I have not been able to watch a film with him in it since we lost him.
Sure.
I have not. Like, I can't watch Aladdin. I can't watch Jumanji. Like, I can't watch any of these films because those memories of him are so powerful on there, and he was such a great actor, and he was a part of my childhood. So that for me is like, I'm not quite ready to let go, I guess, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, and that's what it is. We identify epics, and what I mean by epics are EPOCH, epochs, I guess, of our lives with these people. We remember our childhood. We remember, and that's why people will mourn so much. I mean, the internet allows far more mourning than what there used to be 30 years ago. I mean, even the outpouring of sentiment and everything when Bill Paxton died. And that, I think that's terrific that people are able to, because, people will then spread the word about him, and people that are like, oh my God, I never heard of this guy. Maybe I'll check out one of his films. And so the process goes on, and I think that's great. But 30 years ago, 40 years ago, let's face it, if you didn't get your obituary in People magazine or something like that, or even on Entertainment Tonight as a blurb, I mean, Bill Paxton's death might have, been glossed over. I mean, not saying that he would have been ignored, but it wouldn't have gotten the attention that there is now, because people can post immediate links of clips from his films, and they can, you know what I mean? Like, you can rediscover somebody a lot easier now than it was before. I mean, let's face it, how many people 30 years ago were getting a personal subscription to the Hollywood Reporter or Variety, So exactly. Now you can just, on your phone, click a link and, oh, who's this Bill Paxton guy? He's trending. What the heck happened? And, oh, he died? Well, I never really saw any of his films. Maybe I'll check one out and see what this guy was like. And before you know it, maybe you have a new Bill Paxton fan,
Exactly. That is exactly it. Now, circling back, because I said I was going to circle back, you knew Anthony Perkins.
Well, I knew him briefly. When I was, when I was 18, I always like to phrase, I was invited not to come back to Penn State University. I basically flunked out, and I wanted to make movies. I went to Penn State to make movies, and I ended up just really partying and screwing around with a cheerleader down the hall kind of thing. So it was like, well, it was fun, but I wasted my parents' tuition money that my mother worked to save. And that's a whole other story of, if people always ask, like, I don't know, in your life, do you have any regrets? I would say watching my mother cry when she got, my probation letter at Penn State, like, I used to say all the time, there's nothing worse than seeing your mother cry than being the reason why she's crying. So I would have rather she just screamed at me, threw something at me, and called me an idiot, but she just sat at the table and cried. So I kind of like thought, well, I got to really do something here. And I ended up calling out to Universal Studios, and I totally bullshitted. I said I was the editor of the Penn State Collegian, which I was not. And I wanted to get an interview with Anthony Perkins because Psycho 3 was going to be opening in I think 6 months, something like that, 8 months. And, the enduring, legacy of Psycho, blah, 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 blah. And his secretary said, oh, you're from Penn State? And I said, well, yeah. She goes, well, I'm from Penn State. And we started talking and going back and forth, and it ended up where she said, I'll tell you what, because I told her I was thinking of moving out there. And she goes, well, if you move out here, you bring me a Penn State hoodie, I'll get you into Tony Perkins. And I was like, all right. So I went to the school store and I picked up a hoodie. And I remember telling my mother I had saved up money. And I remember it was a Monday, and I said, I think I'm going to move to Los Angeles. My mom's like, when? I said, Friday. I did. I got on a jet. I had a suitcase, a roll of posters under my arm, and my VHS film reel, which consisted of my crappy episodes of my TV show and Super 8 films. So I ended up landing out in LA. I slept in the airport, caught a bus to downtown to Studio City where Universal was. I washed up in a bathroom, made myself look presentable. I didn't even have a home. And I went over to Universal where I had a pass waiting for me, and I met Jackie, his secretary. And from there, she said, okay, well, Tony will be in a little bit. He's out to lunch. Why don't you go wait in his office? So I sat down in his office, and son of a bitch, if Anthony Perkins didn't walk in about 15 minutes later, and it's like, I am face to face with Norman Bates.
Right.
And he was very kind, and he watched my reel very patiently, and I'm sure he thought it sucked, but he was really, really nice. And he said, so what are you doing out here? And I said, well, I'm looking for a job. And I didn't tell him I didn't have a home. I just landed literally 24 hours ago. And he said, well, do you want a job on the lot? And he ended up getting me a paid production assistant job on Murder, She Wrote. And so I started working on, so I had a job before I had a house or a home. And then
that's awesome.
Yeah, and then I started working there, and that's where I learned a lot. I mean, I learned a lot about how things work at a studio, and about protocol and how, you even though you're working on the show, like, you don't approach Angela Lansbury. You don't, you learn. You just don't rush up and go, oh my God, you're Angela Lansbury. Like, you don't do it.
Right.
And a lesson a lot of people listening probably could take, because in this internet age, everybody thinks everyone is approachable. And
yes.
I was just talking, for example, with Stacey Dash, who told me that she was simply out shopping, and this woman came up and just verbally berated her, like got in her face and made it all about her, like, your words have hurt me. And well, who are you to say that to someone? I mean, what gives you the right just to walk up to someone and think you can just do that? Right. And I've seen it at horror conventions where, people think, oh, I paid $20 for a photo, I can say whatever I want to the person that's in this photo. And no, you can't. It's called having decorum. It's called having manners. No, just because you bought $100 worth of merchandise doesn't give you the right to. I mean, I've heard people say awful things, not awful, but rude to Danielle Harris, to Sean Whalen. Just rude things that you look at people and go, why the hell would you say something like that?
Right.
So anyway, like, I learned that's when digital editing was just starting. And I learned about that afterwards. I would stay after because, the freeways are always backed up, and I finally got an apartment. Well, anyway, I ended up meeting a girl and dating this girl from a soap opera, and she did a couple horror films. She was one of the bikini girls in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. And
that movie.
Yeah, that movie. And but so I started dating her, and just kind of lived out there for about 2 years. And then finally what happened was Howard Kasanjian, who was one of the producers of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Return of the Jedi. I don't know what was going on with him, but I used to have lunch in this common group of offices, and he had an office there. And he would come out and he'd sit down, and he looked at me one day. He's like, who are you? And I was just like, well, I work over on B-Lot and blah, blah, blah. And I want to make movies and da-da-da. And he goes, well, what do you do? And so I told him about my old movies, my TV show. He's like, so how much did it cost you to shoot in the mall back home? And I said, well, nothing. He goes, uh-huh. He goes, how much did your actors charge you? I go, nothing. He goes, kid, you're never going to find that here. He said, my advice to you is get the hell out of here and go back home and make movies. That's what he told me. Yeah. Wow. He said, you're never going to find anybody out here who's going to do anything for you. Now, he was going through, I guess, a pretty rough time personally and stuff, so he was kind of cynical, but he was a real nice guy to me. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not talking badly about him at all. And
Yeah.
anyway, I thought about it, and he said, he goes, look, everybody out here has a script. He goes, everybody's an actor. He goes, go into a restaurant, chances are the waiter or waitress that's waiting on you is an aspiring actor or actress. And he said, everybody's got a script. He goes, my plumber has a script. Like he was like that. So I listened to him, and then we talked, and he was, really disgruntled with the industry. I think he was burned out. He wasn't happy really anymore. And I was like, yeah, but I'm talking to the guy that made Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm talking to the guy that made Return of the Jedi. And he's like, yes, so what? Like, that's how he was. He was just like, big deal.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I took his advice, and about 3 months later, I went home. And I came back east, and, in 2009, I had someone approach me and say, listen, I have some money. I'd like to make an independent film, and I hear you're the guy to talk to. And so we discussed, and that's how the Fields came along. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's how I knew Tony Perkins.
But that is awesome and really good advice to those who are listening. And plus, I mean, what helps people in careers and in life is knowing other people's stories and how they
Well,
went
I'll
about
one up
doing what
you.
they
I'll one up
do.
you on that. The real thing that helps develop your career, and it's something that the present generation, millennials, post millennials, whatever you want to call them, I call anybody that this applies to the coddled generation, and that is you need
Yeah.
failure. Okay, you need to fail. I failed so many times, and look, I still haven't hit what I hope will be the zenith of my success. I haven't hit that. So, I've gotten farther than most people do in this industry, and I've done it all on my own. I didn't
Right.
have a rich father. I didn't have someone to hand over a Rolodex of celebrity names. I didn't have any of that. So I had to
Right.
do all this, and I screwed up, and I messed up, and I failed, and made my mother cry, and, I looked stupid, and, all that stuff. So for me, the message is, look, I hopped on a plane at 18 years of age and flew across the country, didn't have a home. I had nothing other than $3,000
Right.
in my pocket in traveler's checks. And that's not going to last long in Los Angeles. Even back in the 80s, that wasn't going to last long. So the answer
No.
is get the hell out and do it. Don't sit around and be
Yes.
afraid. And, just because elementary school told you all that you're special and everybody gets a trophy. No, everyone isn't special. You see, because if everyone was special, then nobody's special. Then there isn't special anymore. That's why there are winners, and that's why there are losers. That's why there's number one and number two. That's why there's first place. You see what I mean? Like, we can't
Yeah.
pretend everyone is a winner, because they're not. So what are you going to do to be a winner? And sometimes you may still fail. Look, my goal one day is to direct a Godzilla movie. That's all I want to do. And I will probably never get there. But I'm trying. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying really hard.
Well, that's all that you can do. And what you said is reminds me of my favorite line, my favorite part in the movie The Incredibles, or one of my favorite lines anyway. And that was when, said bad guy was explaining
Oh,
to
yeah.
the good guy why he was doing what he was
Yeah.
doing. And he said, because when everyone's super,
Then
then no
no one,
one
and it's
will
so
be.
true. And I mean, that movie, I think the screenplay for The Incredibles is one of the most perfect screenplays ever written. I mean,
Yeah,
it
it's
is
awesome.
like you can bounce a quarter off that script. It's so tight. And,
Yeah.
but the movie had the balls to tackle that very subject about, like, look at, Mr. Incredible with his son Dash, and no, you have to dumb down what you do, Dash. We don't want anybody to feel, like they're losing or second place to
Inferior.
you. And it's like, and the father is
Yeah.
saying it, like, well, why can't he flex what he was born with? Why do we all, like, that's why high schools across the country, some want to get rid of valedictorian and salutatorian, because it makes all those who aren't feel bad. Well, that's just too
Feel
damn
bad.
bad. Then work harder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Work harder, because that's the problem. When people get trophies for sitting on the bench, what are we teaching anybody? Now we have this anxiety ridden generation. Everybody's on meds, everybody's anxious, everybody's depressed, people are crying because Hillary lost. What the hell's wrong with you people? Pull
Right.
up your
You're
bootstraps,
right.
go out there and next time vote and make sure that something like that doesn't happen again. you know Go
Yeah.
out and research. What
Get
are you
up and do.
crying for? And then this Lena Dunham generation, you know what I mean, where it's all about, oh, it's all about me, and it's all about this, and I'm going to take pictures of me sitting on the toilet on Instagram because that's shocking and provocative, and look, it's all about me,
Right.
but I'm going to tell everybody it's not about me, but it's really all about me.
It really is. Yeah.
So
But that's the thing though. It really is about, if there is something that you feel like you want to do, no one's stopping you
right,
from doing it but
right.
you. So just get up and go do it. And yes, be afraid to
Well,
fail.
yeah, but be afraid to
It's,
fail. But if you fail, then figure out why you
well,
failed and go back and fix it. Look, if I could go back and get about 20 years of my life back, there isn't a day that goes by that I'm in this industry that I think the success I'm having right now, I should have had 20 years ago. But that's not going to fix anything. So I've got to work harder,
no.
is what I've got to do.
Yeah.
There are people far younger than me, half my age, that are farther along than me, way farther
Well,
along.
I think that's true in any occupation, in any area of employment or entertainment or industrialism, or whatever it is that your specialty is in. There's always going to be somebody younger and better and further along than you are, but that does not mean that stop what you're doing because they're ahead of you. It just means that you like you said, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and then you go do what it is that you need to do to get to that point. So don't be envious of what
Right.
they have. Do what they need, do what you need to do to get to where they
Right.
have. Like, find out what they did and how
And
they
stop
got
looking
there.
for
and,
shortcuts all the time. Like people,
and stop
right,
looking for
people just think,
shortcuts. You get
oh,
what
I'm
you
going
pay
to
for.
I'm going to do the secret and it's all power of attraction, whatever, the law of attraction. No, man, get out and work.
Yeah.
You'll attract, and learn to get away from dumb people and bad people. That's the other thing,
Yeah.
And you're not going to get
Yeah.
anything done sitting on the internet complaining about it all the time. Go out and make movies. Go out and make the best damn movie you can with what you've got. And maybe it'll get noticed. And you know
Yeah.
what? Maybe it won't get noticed. However, things like American
Right.
Idol have come along where it's like, oh, all I have to do is have a sob story. I'm poor. I come from the projects. My mom died of cancer. What does that have to do with singing? Get the hell up and sing. If you can't sing, then don't stand there and cry and go, everybody I know tells me I can sing. No, they tell you that because they're your family and friends. You suck. Okay? You suck.
I love that because I've had these conversations with people, and that goes back into, so let's circle back, because you are endlessly fascinating, and we need to talk more. Um, so doing all of that, you did all of that. You've had this is, I told you, you have like the best origin story ever. Like, if they made a superhero movie out of you, like, your origin story is awesome.
Well,
Because some
I'm,
origin
I'm
stories
definitely not
suck.
Iron Man. So,
I mean, but some origin stories are better than others, and origin stories where the hero actually has to become who he becomes without the benefit of money and martial arts
sure.
backing, and you have to work this way to do that, without the falling into the vat of toxic waste.
Right, yeah. I prefer
It's
not to fall into the vat of toxic waste. Yes.
would so 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 with all of that, and knowing what motivated you, and what got you to where you are, which is just good old fashioned determination and hard work, which is the best way to do it, because then you're not expecting anything from anybody.
Well, I agree.
But
You're
yeah,
not in
so
debt
but
to
when
someone either.
you're not in debt to anyone. So when you did that, and you got back to where you were, and then you sat down, what made you sit down and write the
Well,
fields? Like
I wrote
what
the
made
I
you feel
wrote the
like you needed to
fields.
tell that
Well, I
story?
wrote the fields because my mother was dying at that time, and
Okay.
it was a way to, I don't know, it was a way because I had people when I would tell them the actual story that happened, they would say to me, "Oh my God, that would make a great movie." And but
Right.
to tell that story, you also have to. I'm sorry for the echo for the moment. I'm doing laundry, so. Um,
Hey, we're all
Yes, I am very
domesticated
domesticated.
people.
Um,
I'll bring mine. Where do you live? I'll bring mine. Okay.
my ex-wife probably misses that, so might be the only thing she misses. I don't know. Um, However, it's I wanted to write a story that also incorporated my mom and something that was also real. And so the fields just kind of came out of a lot of things. It's a darker film, there's no doubt, but I was in kind of a pretty dark frame of mind when I was writing it. So um,
Mm-hmm.
that's really how it all came about.
Okay. So when you began to make this film, and not just this film, but any film that you've done, like what have been the challenges that you faced that may have made you, for even for a brief moment, say, you know what, I'm not going to do this. Let me,
Boy, that is, you know what? Let me
back out
tell you,
of this and do
I think
something
that's the
else.
first time anyone's ever asked me that question. And it's a good question because usually you get, what was it like working with Bill Moseley and Kane Hodder? Well, they were great people. Okay, can we move on? I mean, not
Right.
anything against those guys. I adore them and they're wonderful, wonderful people. But that isn't exactly a fascinating question. And it's probably like
Mm-hmm.
Kane Hodder gets sick of being asked, so what was it like wearing the hockey mask? Like.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
thank you for asking such a good question. Let me put it
You're
to you this
welcome.
way: making the fields, um, overall, I would say was more of a miserable experience than losing my mother.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's how
Okay.
miserable of an experience it was,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of things. So,
Mm-hmm.
what made me feel that way, and what were the challenges? I mean, everything
Yeah.
from SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, learning
Yeah.
as a producer to deal with them. And I think anybody listening to your show who is a producer or even an actor and a director, whatever, a filmmaker, they will be nodding their heads as they hear me that SAG is pretty much a nightmare to deal with. They represent, in my opinion, sometimes why unions are detrimental.
Oh,
And
okay.
the nightmare that we had to go through with them just to make a simple motion picture, that was one thing. The weather
Mm-hmm.
didn't cooperate. That's another. And then the other thing was you're making a film in your hometown. And so everybody knows your business, everybody gets involved. And then on top of it, you have directors. We had two directors on the film. They're good guys, not talking badly about them at all. But they interpreted the material way different than it was intended to, and it was intended to
Mm-hmm.
be. And I can't say I was 100% happy with the final product. I mean, the number one complaint about the fields is I don't understand some of it sometimes because sometimes when I watch it, I can see where, it was kind of moving toward a horror film. And it isn't a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, The Fields is a
Mm-hmm.
thriller. It's a psychological thriller, but it is not a horror film. Okay.
Right.
And I saw where there were times when the dailies were coming back that all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, what? Well, why is this way? And like, one scene, for example, in the fields is the amusement park. It was not written the way that it was shot. And look, any writer is going to complain when they feel their script was messed with or whatever. And I know what I sound like. I'm a whiner. It's a first world problem. I get all of that. But when you're doing all of this and you were location manager and script writer and producer, and then you're dealing with taxes and you're dealing with fees and all the others, it just was not. It was just not a pleasant experience. And to sound like a total whiner, it was my first movie. I'd worked all my life to get to here, and you think when you get there, this should be enjoyable, and it just was not. It
Right.
was miserable. It was. I just sometimes I hated being on set, but you do it. Like you go. My mom had just died, so I'm dealing with all of that. It just wasn't pleasant. Now, on the flip side, Cloris Leachman and Tara Reid were two of the most wonderful people you're ever going to want to work with. They were very sweet, professional. I learned a lot from both of them. And, on the flip side, we got a film that has received a lot of critical acclaim. It's won a number of awards. So, in the end, maybe the directors were right. It's just like I said, maybe so, but it's not the movie I would have made. I wanted it to be a Valentine to my grandparents who are long gone. And I feel that when the Fields is good, it's great. And I think where it really succeeds is when it's focusing on the grandparents.
So I loved Cloris Leachman.
Well, she was my grandmother. I mean, that's it. It's not even like she played it well.
I love
That's the closest I'm getting to my grandmother back. That's the closest.
Well, then your grandmother was awesome.
My grandmother was awesome.
I loved everything about her character. I liked her bluntness, but I liked her, I don't care.
Oh yeah, that's how she was.
It's like, why are you being, why are you scared? Just go do
it.
I told you not to do it, and so now you see what happened. So you were stupid.
Yeah. No, that's how she was. She said that stuff, and then it's funny because there was a write-up, when the Fields came out, there was a write-up in Bloody Disgusting, in which I was kind of, not attacked, but they were trying to call me out by saying, Harrison Smith thinks it's funny to see Cloris say the word nigger over and over. Well, first of all, you saw the film. She does not. Okay?
I saw the write-up too.
And that's important because, and I still had people going, well, it's still not appropriate. Then you're probably an uptight middle-class white person, because the black audiences that saw this film used to laugh and applaud at that scene. And never in a Q&A did I have anybody of African-American descent stand up and accuse me of being a racist or insensitive, because that's not what the scene was. And the directors wanted to cut that before we even shot it. And Cloris said, absolutely not, because she explained it to them as well. This is about this woman being educated in a weird way by her own grandson about her own racism. Yeah. Just because that was the word at the time to use doesn't make it right. And that's what she learned. Even she knows, and she even does her best to correct him in that scene. Like, oh no, don't use the word nigger, say coloreds. Well, that's no better, but that conversation actually happened. And I was a little boy, and I'm telling her, well, Nanny, Mom says that's a bad word, you don't use that word. She's like, oh no, that's not a bad word. Then she realized, shit, that just might be a bad word.
It may actually be.
The kid probably shouldn't be saying this. And that was the importance of that scene. It wasn't written to, get some laughs, you know what I mean? In fact, I didn't want the audience to laugh at it, but it was always white people. How do you feel about using that word? And what are you talking about?
Right. Yeah, I read when I was doing my research on you, and after I saw the movie, I found that article. I found that exact article, and so to be honest, I really had to go back and kind of rewind to go to that scene, because it wasn't something that affected me on that level, because I understood what it was within the context of the movie.
Absolutely.
So I applaud you actually for for having that in there, and I applaud her conviction for not removing it, because it wasn't something. It would have been different if it was something that became the focal point of the.
But it
film.
Wasn't.
And
Right.
it wasn't
at all.
So it was a moment in time.
Well, Charlie in the film,
like
played by Brian
Wilson,
Wilson, is the first black man that I ever saw as a child. When I went to school, all my classmates were white. I mean, you just didn't see it. And when I was a little boy, I meet this man who my grandmother's sister was dating, and he comes to the house and he's black, and I'm like, whoa, like I've never seen anybody with skin like this. And it's not that I'm racist. It was just I didn't see it before. you know?
Right, and that's and again, it was a moment in time. It was a moment in the film, but it was also a moment in time and a moment in your life.
Yes.
And again, it wasn't that that was the focal point of the film. It wasn't belabored. It wasn't drawn out. It
No,
wasn't used to denigrate
not at all.
anybody. It was just it was what it
But now you
was
have on the
for what
internet, you
it
have these
was at
social
the
justice
time.
warriors that are going to go out there and
Yeah.
police morality and what's socially acceptable. And somebody came back to me and said, well, still using the N word. I'm like, stop saying the N word. We're all not 5 years old, okay? We're not all
Right.
five here. We can
Right.
say the word, all right? It's not that I'm saying
Right.
it for shock value. And most of all, no, I still stand by using the scene for the exact things that you just said. It is used in the
Yeah.
proper context, and it was used as a
Yeah.
moment, an educational moment for not just the little boy, but for his grandmother. And it was because you can
Yes.
see her, she's like thinking like, Ugh, probably wasn't good to say this, you know, and
Yeah.
comes back and says, you know, and but the thing is, that's what really happened, you know, like that's how it
Yeah.
was.
Well, it was your truth. And so there's
Right.
nothing wrong with expressing your
But
truth.
everybody now has to be outraged and offended, and everybody has to have a cause, and you know, we all have to fight for this, and everybody's got to have an opinion, you know, and no, sometimes you don't. Sometimes,
Right. Sometimes things just are what they are.
absolutely.
There's no malice
Right.
there's no malice of forethought. It is what it is, and it was what it was in that moment. So again, and for anyone listening, if you consider this a hard subject to hear about, uh,
Go get
it is
therapy.
life, and it was a moment, and
Then
yeah,
go get
it's
therapy. If
life.
you're that sensitive that
It
you
was
can't handle
yeah.
this conversation, you need therapy. That's what you need.
Yeah, so it was a moment, and it was a teachable moment, and it was a well
Thank
written
you.
teachable
I
moment
think
too.
so
So
as well.
people kind of miss that sometimes. So that's I hey, good
Thank
job
you.
on that. And then so I wanna touch upon the other films that you made. Leading up to the film that I cannot wait to go see, just because I'm just a horror film junkie. Uh, so let's talk about the other films that you made. So you had 6 Degrees of
Hmm.
Hell, you have Camp Dread, you have Zombie Killers. You just worked on a comedy. Let's touch on
Sure.
those films. And you don't have to give anything more away than you want to
No
give
problem.
away, but just we want to get people. I want to get people to go and see your work and find out more about you, because I think you do really you're really awesome, and you do really good work with what
Well,
you do.
thank you. Well, 6 Degrees of Hell was the follow up to The Fields, and it was with an all new crew, young director who had just turned 21. He was like a baby, named Joe Raffa, who's one of the finest people I think I've ever met, living in Los Angeles now. He made a film. Why I picked him, he made a film which, if you haven't seen it, you got to find it. Um, I think it's one of the best teenage dramas that are out there, and the reason why, he made a movie. It's called You'll Know My Name, and he made a movie about his present generation, which really is a generation that has no cause and really doesn't have much to say. And he made a film about this, and I just love it. I would, if I were, I would just love to say that it should be up there with like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and all that, but it's not a teen comedy.
Okay.
It is a heavy drama, and it's all about a night in the life of this kid who's going to fight this guy. And that's the point. Like, everybody goes, well, that doesn't sound like much. That's the point. It's almost like the dark version of Seinfeld. Like, you know what I mean? It was a show about nothing. The movie is this movie about nothing. And that's the point of the film. That these kids they have nothing. They only live on what their parents have given them. They're living off the previous generation's build, is what it is. So but anyway, I picked him because of that. And I picked him because, you know, he just seemed like, you know, he was on the ball, and he knew about quality. And so I picked him to direct 6 Degrees of Hell. I wrote 6 Degrees. We shot it in a real haunted house. It's a real haunted hotel. It's called the Hotel of Horror in Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania. It's probably one of the premier Halloween haunts. It's just brilliant, and the people that own it are wonderful people, Dan and Marlo Ambrosio, and they let us shoot there. All the monsters in the film, the creatures, are the actual haunters. They're the people that actually do it for a living. So, yeah, so when you go to the Hotel of Horror, you're going to see some of the people that were in the movie. And some of them still work there. And so that was really cool. And the premise of 6 Degrees, which starred Corey Feldman, is that, when you walk through these haunted hotels and all that stuff for Halloween, what if they really were killing people? You know what I mean? Like, what if, how would you know?
Right.
Some of them are so real.
How would you know?
Right, you wouldn't know. So Corey Feldman starred in it, and it's become like a really cool kind of Halloween cult hit now. And it seems to pop up all the time around Halloween, especially like on Hulu and all of that. So it's done very well. And then we moved on from there. My directing debut was Camp Dread, which starred Eric Roberts and Danielle Harris, and 2 of the nicest people you ever want to work with as well. And I love Camp Dread. Camp Dread just got picked up by Comcast On Demand, and it's right now playing on the East Coast. Then it'll be out west in a couple months. And it was funny. Somebody called me the other night and said, "Dude, Camp Dread is on." So I put it on while I was doing some work, and I'm biased because I directed and wrote it, but son of a bitch if Camp Dread still doesn't hold up. Like it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Camp Dread is not a spoof. It's not a satire. It stars Felissa Rose. That I had to make the film with Felissa Rose because of her sleepaway camp lineage, and I specifically targeted her to be the counselor in the film. I needed her to be that counselor. Otherwise, a large section of the film is not relevant.
Okay.
So Camp Dread did very well. It got picked up by Image Entertainment in Anchor Bay. And then I got called in to do a zombie film called Zombie Killers, Elephant's Graveyard, with Billy Zane and Misha Barton and Dee Wallace. And I wasn't a real fan. I'm still not a real fan of the zombie genre. I think there are probably only 5 good zombie movies made. And maybe there could be a few more. But the premise of the zombie film, in my opinion, as a filmmaker, zombie movies are lazy. That's how I feel. They're always the same. People have to survive. They're survival movies. You get some people chasing you in goopy makeup. They eat some hamburger, and everybody goes, "Well, wait a minute. What about The Walking Dead?" I'm not a fan of The Walking Dead. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's well made. It's beautifully made. It's well acted. I know some of the people who are on it. I'm not disparaging it. It's just not my thing. You know what I mean? It's like I could care less. Every episode, it's pretty much the same thing. People scream at each other, and then some zombies show up. That's pretty much what it is. And for me, it's like I can't believe it's gone on like 8, 9 seasons now. I'm amazed it got past 2 or 3. But good for them. They're doing a great thing. Horror has found a new home on television. And how do you argue that? Gail Ann Hurd and so many people. Frank Darabont was on board in the beginning, and it's far from a terrible thing, and so hell, I'd kill just to have the budgets of one of their episodes for one of my films. So
I know, right?
So for me, it's like we did Zombie Killers, but we did a twist on it. My Zombies are the result. We are the first zombie movie that uses the cause of fracking. We are the first zombie movie to use that fracking process of drawing oil up out of the ground, gas out of the ground, to be the cause of the zombie plague. So
nice twist.
We're distinct on that. It's an environmental film as well. And I wanted to make more of an American Western with it. So it's a modern day story, but with Billy Zane is like, kind of like a John Wayne, Clint Eastwood kind of character in the film. And it's got a very Western flavor to it. The soundtrack has a kind of like spaghetti Western feel to it. And I think Zombie Killers is a really well-made film, but in the end, for me, it's still a zombie movie. So it's like, and I even reference that in the film. Gabrielle Stone says, "Look, man, my dad used to show me all those old zombie movies. It's always the same thing. People are trying to get to the next better place,
Right.
So we reference all of that. But I'm very proud of Zombie Killers, and I enjoy it. I think the performances, I think Misha Barton gives a wonderful performance in the film. Dee Wallace is heartbreaking in it. It was a dream to work with her. I mean, she's a legend. She's one of the first ladies of horror and cinema, in my opinion, and was robbed of an Oscar nomination for Cujo at the minimum.
Yes,
She
I
really,
loved
she
her
really
in
did.
Cujo.
She deserved at
Yeah,
least a nomination for Cujo,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And I think Dee is just
That
like
was
she kind of became in the '80s kind of like America's mom. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
she played all the mom parts, but she is so much like her characters in the way that she's just so warm and approachable. You know, and she's
Okay,
kind of
yeah.
become like my adopted mom. You know, like yeah, she
Aw,
really has, and I absolutely adore
well,
her,
that's cool.
and we're very close friends, and so it's really nice.
Ask her if she'll be my adopted
I
mom
you know
too.
what? I think she probably would. She likes adopting people, and
Well, tell her I'm up for adoption. Tell
okay,
her to go to my page and
I'll
adopt
tell her.
me. Like, just tell her just drop in my inbox and let me know that I've been adopted. That would be awesome.
That's what we should do. We should just start a campaign. Get adopted by Dee Wallace. We'll get a Sarah McLachlan kind of song, and just people with
Yes.
sad faces looking at Dee Wallace. That's all it'll be.
I'll even sing the song. I'll sing the song for my
There you
adoption
go.
campaign. Tell her I need to be adopted. That would be awesome.
So I'll let her know. I'll tell her. I think she's going to get a kick out of this when she hears it. So,
Yes, please do.
oh,
Please
I
let her
will. Yeah, I'll
know.
let her know. When you send me the link, I'll give her the link. Don't worry, she'll listen. She will. And, and
Yay.
then we went from Zombie Killers to Death House, and Dee came back for Death House. As you know, she plays Dr. Fletcher in the film. And very
Yes.
different role for Dee in that one because she's about as warm as a cry for help in Death House. She's not America's mom in this. She's America's wicked stepmother in this movie. And
Yes, I gathered that from the
oh yeah,
previews.
she is not warm and fuzzy in this movie. And Death House, I'm extremely proud of. As you know, it boasts at the moment the largest collection of horror figures in a single film.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, I
oh
saw.
yeah, and such nice people. Whenever I see these people that go on tirades about the evil of horror movies and all that, I'm like, you have never met the people that work in them because they're the nicest damn people. I mean, I'm going to say this, and I know probably a lot of people when they get interviewed, they people think, oh, you're just blowing smoke. I'm telling you, there wasn't a single diva or negative person to work with on the set of Zombie Killers. I'm sorry, Death
I
House on
believe
Death
it.
House. I mean, just the nicest people, man. And to listen to them, I got to sit and have lunch with Sid Haig and him talking about the industry and how he's seen it change. Bill Mosley would have been a kick-ass college professor. Like he would have been the professor everybody on campus wants to take his class. You know,
Oh my
he
God, that
oh
sounds
I
so
mean he's
awesome.
brilliant, number one, but number two, he's just so freaking cool. And when he talks, like, and the same with Michael Berryman, like I could just go on, and Kane Hodder is one of the funniest sons of bitches you'll ever meet. I mean, and plus his story
That's so
alone, like you
cool.
hear Kane's story of growing up. I mean, he grew up in like this, like far west town that was like, basically the industry was meth. Like it's amazing that
Oh wow.
Kane is one of those stories that, like, there you go, kids. You think you had it bad? Read Kane's story. And then to
Right.
burn up, you know what I mean, and almost lose your life burning
Yes.
up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That
there he
too. He
is.
still bears those
Right. And there he
scars.
is
Yeah.
on set, laughing with everybody, joking, playing pranks. He's such a prankster on set, and just a really good guy. Like, and I love his voice. He has a voice also for radio, as a deep kind of, very narrative kind of voice. Like he could have been like almost like a Darth Vader.
Yeah.
But and the film itself, Tracy, is just so much fun. It is. Here's how I describe it. It is a roller coaster ride through the funhouse. That's the best way to describe Death House.
I want to. I saw when the rumblings of the movie first came about. I clicked on everything that I could to read up on it because I am I love horror. I, like you, was exposed to horror at a young age. And it wasn't in a good way, but I ended up getting hooked on it. So to read about these people that I've watched play these iconic roles for years, and then to see them all in one place is like a dream for me. Like, I want to see this movie so
Yeah.
badly because I want to see these people. Kane, I've he's one of the nicest people, and I gathered that from some of the interviews that he's done with the actors that he's been in scenes with. I even saw an interview where he actually, I forget what movie it's from. So Kane, if you're listening to this, please forgive me. But it was like they accidentally hurt somebody and he apologized to him later, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to slam you like that, it was just, in the middle of the movie. So it's like, but all of these people they all seem like genuinely
They
nice
are.
people outside of the films. And I agree with you with the general consensus that you get sometimes about horror films and people who act in horror movies. I happen to be one of those people who's in the minority of my friends when it comes to people who like horror films. So I get like overly excited about horror movies, and then you can see their eyes start to glaze over when I talk about it too long, and then we change the
Yeah.
subject. But most people get into you. There is kind of there's no in between when it comes to horror movies or people who like or dislike horror movies. They either love them or they hate them. You don't find people in between. And so I tend to run into people on both ends of the spectrum, and I get, how can you watch that, and isn't that scary, and how are you not, you're letting bad things into your
Well,
house. I get that
well,
a lot.
I had a lady
Um,
stand up one time during the fields in a Q&A, and I've told this story a couple times, but I think it's one that still needs to be repeated and get out there. And this lady stood up
mm-hmm.
at the end of after watching the movie, apparently brought her 12-year-old daughter along to see this movie, and started berating me. Like, why did you make a movie like this? Like, my daughter is now going to be afraid to see a cornfield and blah, 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 blah. And she started going on and on and on. And she goes, and don't you think you need therapy as after a child of going through what you did? And, so I let her rant and go on because, she's got her moment, right? This is all about her. And
right.
I looked at her and I said, you know what, ma'am? I said, I'm going to answer it by saying this. Number one, no, I'm not embarrassed about this movie. And I don't think I needed therapy because, quite frankly, I feel that children do need a healthy dose of the macabre in their lives. Because here's why. And she was shocked when I said her mouth opened up. And I said, no, no, no. I said, you got to say what you wanted. Now I'm going to respond. And I said, I think the two genres out there that are the most honest are horror and porn. And she went, what? I said, because they have no agenda. Their job is to
True.
stimulate you. That's it. Their job is to exhilarate, titillate, and that's it, and get you excited. That's what it is, right? And I said,
Mm-hmm.
they don't try to force religion down your throat. They don't try to have a political agenda. Their job is to scare or get you off. That's it. Okay? So I said, what I think is worse than any porn, really, I mean, other than, look, child porn, I don't think anybody in their right mind is standing up for child porn. And if you don't,
No,
of course not.
not.
Or, any type of bestiality, that kind of garbage. But what I'm saying is, if you don't like something, don't watch it. Don't buy it. Don't support it. Turn it off. Change the channel, whatever. So I said, what about Disney? I said, your 12-year-old daughter, I said, I take it you took her to the Jonas Brothers movie? And she goes, as a matter of fact, I did. We've seen it twice, and we have the DVD on our shelf. Oh, great. I said, so you must have liked this the part where the Jonas Brothers come out with the hoses between their legs and shoot white foam all over the faces of the little girls in the audience? And she goes,
Wow, they
oh,
did
yeah.
that?
She goes, excuse me? I said, you watch Secret Life of the American Teenager, right? That's on ABC Family, which is owned by Disney. There is nothing family about ABC Family. And there's nothing family about The Secret Life of the American Teenager, which references blowjobs and illegitimate pregnancies and underage sex and drinking and drugs. Wow, that's great, Disney. And what does Disney do in High School Musical? Where are all the ugly fat people? Oh, they killed them all probably, right? Because nobody's ugly or fat in High School Musical. And if they are, they're always the kooky, wacky, zany character. And, those shows have been proven to start eating disorders among, young girls and all that, looking for the proper figures. So, but Disney is wholesome family entertainment, right? That's how they market themselves.
That's
So
awesome.
you think that's perfectly okay, right?
Right.
That's all okay. you know? And didn't Disney
was
make Song of the South? And you're worried about Cloris Leachman saying the word nigger. Disney
right,
made Song of the South. And what were those crows
right.
like? What were those crows like in Dumbo? Didn't they have all that kind
Yeah.
of black Rochester stereotypical sound? Oh, that wasn't racist.
Yes.
No, that's Dumbo. That's different. It's okay.
Right.
You know, so let's really talk about all this, you know, and she didn't know what to say. My answer to her, I finally ended it with, ma'am, if you're going to bitch, then be consistent.
Hey, that's the
That's
truth
it.
right there.
So you got your chance
Yeah.
to stand up and say your thing. So hopefully you have your Oprah moment where people in the audience will applaud you. That's terrific. Well, guess what? Nobody applauded her because there's always one of those people. There's always that person,
Always.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Yep.
always. So let me ask you this: as you go from movie to movie, and script to script,
Hmm.
whether you're writing it or just directing it or both or whatever hand you have in these films, do you feel like as you go you learn something more about the craft
Oh,
itself of
absolutely.
making films
Yeah.
and
Go
also
ahead.
more about yourself
Well,
and also more about yourself?
Well, I mean, look, I learn a lot about myself because with these films, it's how you deal with people. You know, you're going to meet some
Right.
great people, you're going to meet some jackasses. That's how life works. You know, no matter what
Mhm.
job you're doing. I just happen to have a job where we go and make pretend all day. That's all we do. Okay? I
True.
mean, that's all we
Yeah.
do. We get paid to lie to the audience. Yes, this is a true story based on a true story. Oh, bullshit. You know what I mean?
Based
Like,
on a true story.
right.
Yeah.
You know, here I am because I have a film that was based on a true story. However, you know, at the same time, yeah, I mean, you learn a lot about yourself, but anybody who tells you, you know, that they know everything about the industry, well, then they're not really a filmmaker. You're learning all the time, especially now with not only the way that technology is changing on how films are made, but also how they're distributed. Look, back when I was a
Mhm.
kid, and I'm not even that old yet, and I'm talking like, you know, when I was a kid, but if you didn't see it in the theater, you waited 6 months to a year for VHS and cable
Yep.
and all of that. And when we went to the movies, we all saw the same thing. Well, now you
Mhm.
can stream it at home. You can watch Netflix. You can watch independent films on the IFC channel. You can, you know what I mean? Like nobody's all
Yeah.
watching the same, except if it isn't like Star Wars or the latest superhero movie. There isn't a binding pop culture anymore in some ways. So we've all become very
Right.
pluralistic in our viewing, you know, and that's fine. I'm not saying it's bad, but what I'm saying is that's what the industry is having trouble with right now because they can't control it anymore. The music industry fell apart. There is no music industry anymore. Okay, and
Right.
film is following right into that abyss. It's just they just don't know what to do yet to fix it. I mean, you know, look, 30, 40 years ago there would be 50 films released from a studio or 20, 30 films from a studio. Now a studio might release 5 titles throughout the year. You know, everything
Yeah.
has changed, you know, and what is
Everything
it
has changed.
theatrical
Yeah.
anymore? Look, Roger Corman got a lot of theatrical films done. They made it to theaters. That wouldn't happen today. Okay? They'll
No.
they'll get reserved for a Sci-Fi Channel original movie, get stuck on some, you know, streaming service or whatever, but it wouldn't be like it was. Like, you know, Doug McClure, who made a living off of making B creature feature monster movies, well, he wouldn't have a career today other than being stuck on television. You know, it's
True.
very different now.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw, you know, Warlords of Atlantis in the drive-in. I saw, you know, At the Earth's Core, all those big monster guys in rubber suit movies. I mean, I watched all those in theaters, but that wasn't happening with The
Yeah.
Land That Time Forgot. I mean, The Land That Time Forgot got remade for sci-fi from the Asylum, and that's where it would have ended up today if it wasn't done by somebody like Spielberg making a Jurassic Park version of it, you know?
Mhm.
So I don't know what the future of film is, but I'm learning, and I'm learning what to do. Like with Death House, we have to market Death House properly. Death House is not Lights Out. Death House is not Don't Breathe. It's not Oculus. It's not
Right.
Blumhouse. Death House
Right.
is more of a John Carpenter type of horror. Like Death House owes more to Escape from New York than it does Friday the 13th or anything like that. You know,
Right.
there's a lot of sci-fi, weird, kind of almost like Big Trouble in Little China action in it. And we're going that route, but we also have to market it to people that get that, because there are a lot of people, like, look, a lot of kids growing up now, they don't know who Kane Hodder is. They don't even know there was an original Friday the 13th.
Exactly.
And the internet keeps a lot of this alive, but so do the conventions. And so we need to market to that, in my opinion, that 30, 35 and up crowd. That's who we need to market to. Now, if the 17-year-olds and all that go, wow, this could be cool, and no, I didn't know who this was, well, that's great. But if, right now they think The Conjuring is the ultimate in horror, they think Lights Out was the scariest movie ever made. Give me a freaking break.
Yeah, I can think of a few movies that were scarier.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just in my opinion, and that's the beauty of filmmaking and the beauty of horror. Good or bad, these movies evoke emotions, and that's the thing about it. So I agree with what you said with horror movies. They're there to evoke emotion. They're not there to make you feel safe. They're not, as a matter of fact, they're kind of there to take away that safety net that you have, and make you feel. I remember when I went to the show and I saw the very first Final Destination, and of course I'd never seen anything like that previous. So I remember walking out of the theater, and we were walking across the street, and I remember just being hyper aware of everything. Like, like everything was in living color. Like, I saw the cars. Like, you see cars coming when you're crossing the street. No, I saw the cars. You get what I'm saying? Like, everything was in focus. Like, okay, what is that? What is that? Why am I walking past that? What is that? Is that going to jump up and do something to me? So, it's one of those things. Scream was another one of those movies for me that kind of, it took you off of your center, and it made you wary of getting a phone call, just a simple phone call. And to take those horror movie tropes and turn them against you, and to so blatantly say, well, this is what happens in horror movies, and I'm definitely not going to do that. And then they went and did pretty much the same thing. So movies like The Fields and Death House, those movies that get into that place where you're no longer comfortable, but also give you that element of, it's still a movie, so it's still, let's have some fun with it, and let's watch this with the intent that it was made. Let's not ascribe certain expectations to these films. Let's look at it, in the spirit that it was made.
And I just,
you can experience it in that way instead of looking at it and comparing it to something else.
I just wrote about that on my cinema post. I read a series of articles called Cinema, Cynema. And I wrote about that audiences have been, one of the problems with the digital revolution, and that includes DVD and home video and cable and all of that, is they started releasing too much footage, I think, of behind the scenes. And it's kind of like a magician giving away their tricks, to the trade. And it starts making like little mini experts out of people. Everybody suddenly becomes an expert on special effects, and everyone is an expert on budgets, and everybody's an expert on trailers, and all this garbage, when what it comes down to is, whatever happened to just enjoying a film? I mean, look at all that John Carpenter did with Escape from New York. If that were released today, it would be trashed. Oh, the trailer looks horrible. It looks cheap. I can't. Did you see those effects? Let's analyze this trailer and break it down frame by frame by frame. Who the hell ever said that trailer reviews were a legitimate form of criticism? Where did that ever come from?
Especially when, for a lot of films, like, the best part of the movie is shown in the trailer.
Let me go back.
So a lot of times the trailers raise the expectations of the film, and then you go and you watch the film and you look for the stuff that's in the trailer, and it's not there.
You go back after this interview, you go on YouTube and start looking at old trailers for some of the biggest films out there, like Jaws. The trailer for Jaws is terrible. It is a terrible, terrible
Yeah.
trailer. Now, Jaws is my favorite movie of all time, and I think one of the greatest motion pictures ever made. But that trailer is stupid. It's cheesy. It looks like it's a B movie. It just doesn't
Mhm.
highlight anything at all. I mean, you got the narrator. That guy was great. He was the voice of the 70s. I get that. But, I mean, it's not a good trailer. If you release that trailer today, well, that movie would fail. You know, people would look at
Yeah.
that. Oh, this looks terrible. They don't even show the shark. Oh, that's because probably the shark sucks and they're not showing it. Like, that's how it would be. Look at the preview for Halloween. Look at the preview for Escape from New York. Look at those
Yeah.
previews back then, put them into a modern audience today, and they would trash them. You know, like, look, they
Yeah.
released the teaser trailer for The Last Jedi. And there are people on there. I don't think this is really a good move who the hell are you? Shut up. That's how I feel. Shut up and
Yeah.
sit down. You're going to tell Kathleen Kennedy and Disney what's good for the expanded universe of Star Wars? Shut up. That's why you're sitting and commenting on a YouTube account, okay? So just shut up. All right? Because
True.
nobody asked you, first of all, for your opinion. Nobody cares what you think.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Mhm.
Disney certainly doesn't. I remember somebody wrote when they were doing the whole will Carrie Fisher be CGI in future films or not? And someone wrote, not on my watch. Shut up. You have no say in any of this. But the problem is by releasing so much of this footage and how films are made, everybody thinks they become a little mini expert. You know,
Yeah.
nobody knows. Look, anybody out there right now that even has a crowdfunder, okay, and they're trying to raise money and they're on set and they're shooting their movie in installments, that's how you learn to make a movie. Then you can comment. But until you've done it, you know, you don't get to say anything. That's how I feel. You don't get to say
Yeah.
anything. You know, when you're out there killing yourself to make a movie and people have put up their homes as collateral and all of that stuff. I mean, look what Francis Ford Coppola did just to make Apocalypse Now. You know,
Yeah.
that's unheard of these days. And my point is, everybody now has become this expert, and really none of them are. And then you've got, you know, shows like Project Greenlight or whatever that make it look like it's just so easy to make a movie. Like, that's all you do, right? You just do this, and the way they edit it to the music, it all looks very simple. It's not simple, you know. And then the other part is, you know, they market this whole idea that a movie like Paranormal Activity, which was made for $15,000, can make $400 million. So everybody with a camcorder and Final Cut Pro thinks they're going to make the next Paranormal Activity. I'm going to tell you, you are not. Okay, you will not, because it didn't happen that way. I know exactly how it happened because I talked to the original people that had the film and how it went from a third-tier distributor all the way to Paramount Pictures and making $400 million. And after they went back and sunk about $2 million in post-production and cleaned it up and reshot some scenes and added some CGI and cleaned up the sound and made it look like a bigger picture, well, then they sunk $50 million into promotion and advertising. Well, sure, if somebody puts $50 million into your film to advertise it and makes you think this is what you have to see, well, yeah, then you have a shot at making $400 million.
You absolutely
But
do.
if you just go out and think I'm going to make a movie for $15,000 and it's going to be the next Harry Potter franchise, I've got news for you. No, it's not. No, it will not happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree. See, I like talk. We need to talk more. Like, like, like when we get through with the interview, like you need to just like call me on the phone, and then we just need like, you need to be my new best friend. Will you be my new best friend? Yay!
Sure.
I'm just,
Yeah, but
yay.
you
See,
get second place to getting the house clean for relatives tomorrow.
I get you. I am on my way. Leave the key under the mat. You go make a film, and I'll come clean up the
Yeah, that'd
house.
be great.
Deal?
Deal.
Okay, so there's okay, so for here's the fun stuff. Here's the fun stuff. What is your least favorite food?
Ooh. Well, I don't like fast food. That's one. But I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna say liver.
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 Yeah, that's up there for me.
Yeah.
Want to know what mine is?
Sure.
Maybe you can make a movie about it. So, it would have to be a comedy though. Mine is okra,
Okra. Yeah. Okay, I can understand that.
and I believe that it comes from a little corner in hell where they created mosquitoes, and They like right that little area where they said let's make mosquitoes. They created okra in that little corner in hell. I believe
That's
that's
very
where it comes
funny.
from. And like like I'm partial to a lot of foods, but like if you like, let's go to Okra Palace, I'm gonna have to say no.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there'll be too many okra palaces around, so I don't think you're going to have to worry
Thank
too much.
goodness.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. So when I come over to clean up, no
Yeah,
okra,
you got
okay?
it. Feel that, consider it done.
Okay. So one other thing. Um, we need to talk again, so we're definitely going to set up some more interviews with
Sure.
you. But please tell everyone where they can go and find you, all of your social media haunts, where you want them to look
Sure.
you up, where you want them to get more information about you from. Like, let the world know where they can
Sure.
find
Well,
you.
I really, for social media, I only use Twitter. So you can find me at
Mm-hmm.
Harrison Smith 85 on Twitter. Just with the at, you can find me there. So Harrison Smith 85. I'm listed as B Harrison Smith on there, but just if you put in the at symbol, you can read my cinema articles, which are not movie reviews. Because just what the internet needs is another film reviewer. Um, but you can go on to horrorfuel.com, and they host me there. They invited me to come over there and write for them on there. So I'm on
Cool.
horrorfuel.com, and it's called Cinema, Cynema, and it's a pretty popular series, and we look at the process of cynicism in filmmaking. And what inspired me to start the series was the movie Jaws: The Revenge, which I consider to be the worst motion picture ever made in the history of film. So, and there's a reason why. Everybody would go, no, Ed Wood. No, 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 no. Read my articles and you'll understand why I have chosen Jaws: The Revenge as the worst motion picture ever made. Because it shouldn't have been the worst motion picture ever made. So that's one. And then
Okay.
I have my
Mm-hmm.
regular website, which is class85.com. It's class number 85.com. And I usually keep that pretty current. It's hard. I do all my own social media work, so a little tough. But you can find all my films on Twitter and Facebook, Zombie Killers, Camp Dread, Death House. All of them have Twitter and Facebook accounts where all the latest information is published. And Death House, we're looking at, it probably will be a fall release. We are excited. I can't announce all the details yet because they're all being finalized, but we do have a distributor
Mm-hmm.
in place, and we're really, really happy with what they're planning on doing. And I think Death House is going to get a very, very nice release, and people are going to be very excited when they see it, I think.
I am so extra excited about that film. I want to see that film. That's like number one on my to do list. Like, go see Death House because I'm uber excited
Well,
about that.
good.
The the people that you have in it, but most of all, I'm excited about it because you wrote and directed it, and being able to talk with you today has been beyond awesome. You have no clue. Like, I'm smiling. I'm fangirling a little bit
Well,
um,
let me earn that. So
right now.
watch Death House.
But
You
I
may be
mean,
cursing me after you're done. I don't know. So
I don't think so. I think I'm going to be happy with it as well. I just wanted to say thank you
oh, you are welcome.
so
You are
much
welcome.
for coming on to my new show. I'm so happy about that, and just giving us so much insight and advice, and just being a real person. I like real people, and by that I mean people who aren't afraid to express their feelings, and also just give the real world view of what goes on behind the scenes, and the struggles and the things that you have to deal with being a director, and a writer, and working in a field where it eats people
It
alive. So
does.
you have
It
to
does.
be tough, and you have to lace up your boots like we said earlier, and you have to go out, and you can't be afraid to fail, and you have to do it. And if it sucks, do the next one and make sure it sucks less. Like, that's just kind of just the model you have to assign to it. Like, I know this sucked, the next one won't suck as
Right.
much, but I'm still going to do it again. So I am really, really grateful to all of the people out there in Radio Land. You heard the man. Go follow him on Twitter, please do. If you don't, he won't tell D I need to be adopted, and he won't be my best friend. And I need Harrison to be my best friend. You guys don't even understand. So I need Harrison to be my best friend. So since I need you to do that, go follow him. Go check out class85.com. That is www for those who are still typing that in. Class85.com. Follow him on Twitter. Look him up on IMDb. He's listed there too. Look up B. Harrison Smith. He's really a cool person, as you can hear from the interview and just from the interactions we've had before this. He's really, really a cool person. So make sure you guys go check him out. Support him. Share his stuff. Share his movies. Check him out. Don't forget the cinema. Cynema. Make sure you check that out as well, because I've read some of the things that you've written, Harrison,
Oh,
and
thank
yeah,
you.
you're pretty awesome. So you guys make sure you go check them out. Thank you guys once again for tuning into this episode, second, yay, of Films of Fears, featuring my very, very, very special guest and new best friend, Harrison Smith. We can leave the B. You can add the B if you want to, and
Sure, always add the
always
B.
add the B. And so I look forward to you guys letting us know what you thought about the interview. You'll be able to find this on our SoundCloud channel, as well as it'll also be replayed several times. So if you miss it the first time, you'll be able to check it out. And make sure you come back and check us out for more interesting interviews from top horror writers, directors, actors, actresses, and everybody that has anything to do with anything horror film related. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Harrison, for being awesome. And have a great day. Stay creepy, stay awesome, and most of all, stay you.